Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, Kathy, it's great being together today. Yesterday, we sure had fun.
That was a good one.
Sharing about how we as couples, as well as in small groups, share with each other by asking a really simple question. And the answer is really wonderful, and that is, what's God saying to you?
Right.
And because, remember, you're in a dynamic relationship. It would be if I said to you, Kathy, what's Dan saying to you? You would be cognizant of, well, this morning he said this.
Right.
And you would process that based on the most recent thing that God is speaking to you. And you could be processing a decision, or, we've been working on this, and, Dan said this to me. What you wouldn't do is say, well, I don't know because I don't spend any time with him.
Right.
You wouldn't say that. Or you would say, well, 2 weeks ago, he said this. Because you would always be vital. You would always be what's happening.
There's always something fresh.
Yeah. Life, what's going on now. So that question is such a beautiful question because it's not, I'm not asking my wife, Linda, give me a book report about all that God said to you. It's just, what is God saying to you now?
Right.
And because she's camping out, what we call camping out, she's been abiding in something that is personal to her. It's something that God is fulfilling, doing, having transformed her and or promising something to her. And she isn't going from, well, today I read in my devotion, and the next day I read something else, and the next day I read something else. It's, no, what is God speaking to you about this specific thing that you've been processing with Him, and you're in it every day, you're in it all the time, you're enjoying it, but the question is fresh. What's God saying to you? And then her answer is, well, this is what God's saying to me now. See,
right.
This is the word that came to me. This is this revelation that came to me. This is, where I'm at with it. And as I've dealt with this with other people, and as you know, Kathy, that's the question I'm going to ask everybody. What's God saying to you? Some people will say, well, nothing. Okay. Are you spending time abiding with Him? No, not really. Okay. Let's talk about that. And what do you think is blocking you? And usually it's disappointment. I'm too busy, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. What was the question you're asking Him? What was the last thing He said? Let's go. Let me help you get reconnected. Because there's something about it that I know. There's life there.
Right.
We talked about adventure yesterday. There's excitement. There's the heart of a kid who gets to discover, explore, receive the beautiful life of the God of the universe who cares about you.
Right.
So that I know, and this is why I can encourage everybody, is that I can guarantee you, if you spend time with the Lord through His Word and letting Him speak to you, abide with Him, you will receive life. You'll receive covenant life. I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. I'm going to resolve your issues. I'm going to restore the things that you've lost. I know that's so. And I can't force you to do it. I can't even tell you you should. My only comment is, why wouldn't you?
Right.
And why don't you give it a try? Because if you do,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to happen. The life is going
Right.
to come. And that's why, I can say to somebody who said, well, no, not much. I'm not really abiding. No, I haven't got there yet. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you start, you will. And
Right.
then when I say, what's God saying to you? Kind of like this group that we had 2 weeks ago, they're already responding. What's God saying to you? Oh man, you wouldn't believe what God's
Mm-hmm.
saying to me. Look at what God is up to. This is resolved
Right.
already. This is happening. This is exciting because, well, that's that's the nature of God.
And
Uh,
isn't that really what life with God should look like, period?
yes.
Like I think about if our churches were filled with people who were abiding,
Yeah.
they would be blowing up.
Yeah.
I mean, it would just, people would not be able to stay away. I even looked, this weekend was Pentecost Sunday and we had baptism at our church. And we're in New England again, so it's not a plethora of Christians out here. And 37 people got baptized,
Wow.
and it was so contagious. The joy in the room and the Word of God alive. And I think about that when I think about abiding. When you get a group of abiding people together, and they're simply exalting Jesus. They're exalting what he's saying, what he's doing, how he's alive in their lives. You can't help but get excited, and then you get inspired to go share with others, and you want to draw people in. When you meet something that impactful, you can't help but want to give it away.
No, no. And uh, we have a group that we actually started an abiding retreat. This is now a month and a half ago. And they went through abiding first time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they stayed with it. We actually had a reunion with them where they come back, share what's God saying to you, and they were
Mm-hmm.
every person around the table just got more and more excited. Like,
Right,
well,
right.
yeah, it's cool. That's cool for you. Guess what happened to me? And
Mm-hmm.
well, because of and you just said it, because of the obvious change
Mm-hmm.
and they've gone from life being tough, a struggle, resigned, awful, and they're still, by the way, they still got the same issues.
I was going to say the circumstances may not have changed.
No, they're still working through them, but they're starting to
Mm-hmm.
experience the life of God.
Yes.
And so here's what's happened. I've got out of that one group, I've got them coming to me and saying,
Mm-hmm.
and there's now 6 abiding retreats going to be reset up, and
Wow.
it simply happened. It simply happened this way. Their
Mm-hmm.
friends
Yeah.
who said, "What happened to you?"
Right. We
Well,
need that.
I've learned how I can live in the excitement and the
Mm-hmm.
adventure and the life of God.
Right.
And their question is that possible for me?
Mm-hmm.
Could I learn that? And their answer is yeah, because we just did, knowing nothing about it.
Right.
And
Right.
that's how it multiplies.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not about trying to sell a program. It's
Yes.
the experience sells itself.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathy and I always say, it's not about you should. It's like, why wouldn't you
Right.
enjoy it? So
Yeah. And
it's
and the reality is God doesn't need us to market him.
no.
When we experience him, he is glorified.
Okay.
There's, that is what happens.
Okay. Talk about that a little bit. It's a very profound statement you just
Mm-hmm.
made. Is we don't have to sell him. We don't have to market.
No.
We don't have to persuade anybody
Nope.
of you should. If we're caught in the intellectual part of that, we
Mm-hmm.
can talk. Well, you can know about things about God,
Mm-hmm.
but it's never coming from a place of flow through.
Right.
So, and you say that when we start experiencing it, God is glorified. Okay,
Yes.
how does that work?
Well, it's just in my mind, such a beautiful thing. As we know him, we can't help but share simply what we know. It's how we're wired. And as we begin to share that, people see who God is. They see his character. They see, okay, this isn't maybe what I thought if I was going to pick up the Bible. This isn't, the God I heard about, or when I heard that person over in the corner judging me and
Yeah.
and spewing things at me.
Yeah.
This looks different than that. You're experiencing a level of life, a level of peace, a level of joy, a level of forgiveness that I desire. And whatever it is you've got, I want to get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in that place, again, God, we haven't dressed God up and put a bow on him. We've simply shown somebody who he authentically is. And when they see him authentically lived out through our lives, they want to meet him.
Yeah. And we've
It's
talked
that
about,
simple.
yeah. And we've talked about, remember, the result of abiding is called fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the fruit? Well, there's two fundamental categories of fruit. One is my life gets transformed.
Mm-hmm.
So my fear gets transformed to peace.
Mm-hmm.
My unforgiveness gets transformed to forgiveness. My
Mm-hmm.
struggle with an addiction or pornography or
Right.
something that I get angry all the time. God says, well, the fruit of you abiding is I'll transform that.
Right.
And it's not managing it. So it's not like, well, I got a little bit better at it and then I just went back to it. It's, I really stopped being so angry. And now these things that typically used to make me angry, I don't get angry about anymore. I still have the emotion of anger. But I've learned what God now will do with that because I've been transformed. That's one element of truth. And that's obvious to people, by the way. Two,
Yeah, and I think it's
go ahead.
let me just insert while you're talking about that. I think it's interesting too. You talk about the managing the sin, and managing. I think that is a real indicator. If we find ourselves continuing to go back, and that we're just trying to manage it, that we are indeed doing it on our own strength.
Right.
And not allowing him and his word to do the transformation. We're simply taking his word and saying, okay, I got it. I'll be back when I've got this mastered.
Yeah.
And he wants to be the author and finisher. He wants to walk us through the entire transformation. And that's where there's true power, true transformation, and not we run back and struggle again.
Yeah. Because if we try to do it, we wind up in failure.
Yeah.
And I guess I can't get through this, and I'm stuck with it. And that's what leads to discouragement. That God says, well, I can completely transform your heart and your life. And then the second category is what I call changed circumstances. That is that God will act supernaturally to fulfill things in life where you've got a real business issue, you've got a real financial issue, you've got a real relationship issue, you've got things going on in your life that are a struggle. Or decisions that need to be made. And God says, well, here, watch what I'm about ready to do. And things start coming together for you. And you get resolution and you get things that God will show you what the good life looks like, his abundant life looks like. Again, not exempt from trouble. So it's not the way to get put in a bubble, but that you start to see not what you did, but all of a sudden what God did. And then when God does it, we automatically what's called bear witness to that, because you know that you know that you know. Look at what God did, and it wasn't because I was so skilled or because I was so wise, or I look at what I did. That's not even on your heart. You're so excited. It's just, I can't help but share the cool, wonderful thing that God just did to fulfill something. And when that occurs, and you made the statement, God is glorified. He says, I am going to glorify myself through you. It's your life connected to me. And I will glorify myself, and it'll be so obvious to people around you, both your transformation and the cool, wonderful things that are happening, that they'll say, what happened to you? And because people's viewpoint, by the way, as I've asked people, is it seems to me that there's what I call, and they almost categorize it this way, there's lucky Christians and unlucky Christians. Some people seem to they
Wow.
seem to be blessed and they're doing okay, but most people that I see, they're struggling, they're discouraged, they're depressed, they're oppressed,
Mm-hmm.
not happy, having relationship issues, having business issues, um, and I guess they're just one of the unlucky ones. And
Mm.
I say, no, you got it all wrong. God says, my children are part of my kingdom, and I invite everybody to experience me. Because if you do, there will be fruit,
Right.
and you'll experience the fruit, and you'll be in such a way that it will glorify me. God speaking,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't need to sell anybody. They'll want to come
Right.
and say, is that possible for me? And the answer, as Kathy and I will say
Mm-hmm.
to everybody, not only is it possible, we guarantee it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of catches people with, you can guarantee that. Yes, yes, I can. Why? Because I know the truth of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's absolute and it's beautiful.
Right.
So yeah, it's a great thing that God will glorify Himself. And as we've talked about sharing, particularly when you share with each other,
Mm-hmm.
what is God saying to you? That one of the key aspects of that is the aspect of what we call journaling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Getting into a place where you're writing things down and recording, what God is speaking to you, what questions you have, but you get used to, and that's why, if your time in the Word is, even if you say, well, I can do 20 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's journaling that out as well as
Mm-hmm.
recording other things. So
Right.
let's talk a little bit about that today. And we've got these thoughts on journaling that we'd like to share. Um, and Kathy, one of the things we want to help people understand is that there's really we have lots of these that you can get into, but there's two particular reasons for journaling. So read the first
Okay.
one on the list, and then we'll talk about that one, and then the last one on that list.
Okay. It says, what God speaks to you is important to record. Write it down for further processing.
Okay, so um, I mean, how simple can you get? I guess is that uh,
Mm-hmm.
the God of the universe is speaking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And He says, I have something to share with you. I have my life to give you. I have direction for you.
Right.
I have guidance for you. Um, well, because of we're limited as
Mm-hmm.
human beings, um, and it would be the same thing again if I said to you, you're in relationship with your husband Dan, or I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with my wife Linda. If you said to me, what did Linda say to you, 2 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
I would fundamentally say, I don't know. I don't remember that. I can tell you what she said today,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what she said 2 weeks ago. Um, how the only way I could know that
Right.
is if I wrote it down.
Right.
And then I went back and processed it with her, and I could say to you, well, the things that Linda has been saying to me, or the things that Dan, you can say that Dan's been saying to you. Let me look at my journal, and I can tell you what things were said, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been processing it, so that um, if we don't write it down, it'll be the most profound, wonderful truths that God will give you.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, the words are spirit and life, so He's
Right.
going to be working them. If we don't
Mm-hmm.
write it down, we absolutely will forget it.
Right.
It'll be lost. In other words, it'll be at the moment that was felt good. I got discovery, I got revelation. It
Mm-hmm.
was really wonderful. But if you don't write it down, you'll lose it.
Right.
And
And
God, go
distraction
ahead.
comes in so quickly.
Yeah.
I think for most of us, even if we are good at having that solid set apart time to spend in his word and in a conversation with him in the morning, we walk out the door and there are so many different things vying for our attention and our mental space
Yeah.
that fill it up. And so if we don't have this place to come back and kind of fix our thoughts and relook and see, then it's so easy, to be that seed that falls on rocky soil,
Yeah. Yeah. So because God is speaking to you, um, you consider what he's saying to be important, significant, and
Mm-hmm.
it's worthy of continued meditation,
Right.
pondering, getting it in your heart. So you got to write it down. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really a significant one. And then go to the second one too, or that last one there on that list. Reasons
The
for
last one.
journaling. Yeah,
Okay. Writing all what you are hearing and understanding will bring clarity and answers. You will be amazed at what you write and then receive as He continues to lead and guide you into His best. His word to you is life, and it will be joy, always exciting as you receive this life and enjoy the wonderful relationship that this brings to you.
yeah. So as you consider that, write everything down. Um, and in my experience, you get into this what I call a flow. Remember,
Mm-hmm.
it's life, and I'm writing things about what he's saying, and here's what I hear you saying, and questions, and etc. And I'm writing things down. And what I do is, again, I'm going back during the week to process those things and okay, what did I write, and what does that mean, and what other questions do I have? But here's what happens, and maybe you can share about your experience as well. Is I go back and I look at something I wrote,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I say, oh my gosh, how profound, how amazing is this? And interesting enough, I did write it,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't really register at the time I wrote it.
Right.
But when I go back over it, there's a wonder about that. There's a, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, wow, look at what God said to me. And I didn't even realize he said it to me.
Yeah.
Or he
I was going to
showed
say
me this
sometimes
truth.
it's that much richer when you go back. It has more of an impact because he's added layers to it since
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
And all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize the depth of what you were saying to me when you spoke it. But then he continued to add to it, and all of a sudden it had a whole new impact.
right. And also what I call connecting dots.
Mm-hmm.
My journal, particularly as I've written out the scripture, um, I tend to draw lines between words or verses or things
Mm-hmm.
like, wait a second, this is important, and I'll draw a line down here. I'll put an arrow next to something, and then I'll write a little bit about that. I've gotten this insight about this particular verse. Here's what I've understood about it, and I do an arrow. So when I
Mm-hmm.
go back over it, um, I go back to those lines. I go back to those things connected. And again,
Mm-hmm.
and like you just said, that might have been 3, 4, 5 days ago. Well, in those 3 or 4,
Right.
5 days, more has been given.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, look, these things were being connected. And by the way, I even got more on that.
Right.
And it's an exciting proposition
Mm-hmm.
to be abiding in that word because God is revealing such wonderful things, and you've got
Right.
to write it all down. And it's an exciting thing because you realize that God says, what I'm telling you is going to be way bigger than what you could think
Mm-hmm.
on your own. And
Right.
you start to appreciate that. And I know
Right.
you've experienced that as well.
Yes, so many times. And even as you're just talking about that, I'm reminded of again just that power of writing it down and then going back and revisit. Maybe last week or the week before, you were talking about an exercise where you'll actually um, write
Right.
out everything I think, okay, this
Right.
is what I thought you've told me for the
Right.
last couple
Right.
of weeks. And
Right.
then you go back and
Yeah.
you review. I had never heard you say that before. And so last Friday, I actually did that. I'm like, oh, that's a fun way. It was a new way to review because
Yeah.
I'm used to every few weeks I'll go through and I'll kind of review and then take out the main points, but I never really test myself.
Yeah.
And so this time I tested myself and I failed on a lot of them. So I went back through and I'm like, okay, I
You mean
definitely
you didn't remember every single
I
thing that you ever
I
wrote
did not
down? Ah,
but that so that told me, okay, like you said, that's a good test to see, okay, I definitely had taken 3 or 4 of these aspects much further and blown them out, but then there were some profound things that I had totally forgotten that he had written,
yes.
or that I had written that he had spoken,
Right. Right.
And so that exercise was really, really useful to me in just reminding me I'm not done ruminating on that yet. So let's go back and revisit that and layer that back in. The other thing that it reminds me of that has happened to me before, I don't know if this has happened to you before, but in reviewing the journals, I can go back and find that there are places that I have I guess I won't even be kind about it. I'll just be blunt, that I have downright disobeyed God. you know, that he will have brought something up. And if I look back in my journal and I see, you know what, a year ago he told me this. And you know what, if I go back 2 years, I was still asking him this. He was still giving me the same answer. And I still have not followed up with it.
Well,
That's on me.
yeah, yeah, it's on
There's
you.
some maturity there that I need to, okay, he's spoken this, and okay, God, there's this fresh what about now, but I need to pay attention because there's a repetitive theme here that I'm not allowing him to mature, that he's inviting me to grow me past.
Yeah, yeah. And as he does that, which is something that we all understand, is that, we might get an instruction, or, it was clear.
Mm-hmm.
He's asking me to take this step or do this activity.
Mm-hmm.
And we, again, maybe not purposely said no. It's just that we, I would say it was negligence. It was,
Yeah, negligence is a good,
I
yeah.
didn't give it any attention, and I
Mm-hmm.
lost it.
Right.
And then, of course, God comes back and says, well, I still have this on my list, so I'd
Right.
like you to keep considering that. But when you experience that, what also did you know about the heart of God when he said, hey, honey, this is important for you
Right.
to be obedient to? What did you
Yes.
also understand about the heart of God and how he did that with you?
Right. Well, one, it showed his patience, honestly. It showed his patience. It showed his persistence in pursuing he wants what's best for me. And in this place where I to allow him to step into this place the way that he wants to, there would be healing in this, that I would actually get to experience, that I am continuing to settle for mediocre rather than stepping into abundance.
Yeah. And did he have condemnation to you?
No, no, there wasn't that. It's okay. I'm going to bring it up again now. Are you going to receive it this time?
Yeah. See, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
always about, and we use this phrase, how about now?
Mm-hmm.
Um, he says, I have been, I have been attempting to invite you
Right.
to this,
Mm-hmm.
and you've neglected it. You went a different way. It's important, which is why I'm
Mm-hmm.
not letting it go. But are you willing to go now?
Right.
And I'll work it now. And let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back. Let's go. For me, see, I find Jesus to be quite funny,
Mm-hmm.
and he's very challenging. And I've experienced what you just said. Um, you get reminded. This is a step of obedience that I asked you to take months ago or weeks ago
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And I've actually a couple of times. And so the way he approaches me is he says, so you think you know better than me. Uh, and so now I've asked you to come this way, and you talk about
Mm-hmm.
trust and the covenant life. Why are you missing out? Because do
Mm-hmm.
you think, Rich, you know better than me, huh? Is that how this
Right.
goes? And no, not really. Well, then, basically, what is the problem here?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with you? Wouldn't you think it would be better to walk with me? Yeah, I do. Well, then, how come you're not?
Mm-hmm.
Well, negligence. I forgot. At the truth of it, I really didn't want to do it,
Right.
or I
Right.
didn't know if the result was going to be good. And he says, well, okay. How about now? You want to try
Mm-hmm.
it now? If I was you, I'd go with me.
Right.
Okay, all right, I'll do it. Okay, I'll follow it. And he does it. I think he does it in a really fresh and funny way because it's
Mm-hmm.
always. He doesn't say what's wrong with you
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to beat you up because of it. It's that I'm leading you to the fantastic.
Right.
What are you doing? Why are you
Right.
not coming with me? I don't get it. I don't. Why don't you
Yeah.
come with me? Okay, all right, I will. So uh, it is such a beautiful thing, and see, the key to that is this journaling,
Mm-hmm.
that you're recording, you're processing. And what Kathy described, even what you said you did last week, is okay, how am I doing at receiving?
Mm-hmm.
And because of our incapacity, really, um, we are going to be very imperfect at this.
Right.
And this is what he says, let me teach you.
Right.
And that is, I don't expect it to be perfect. You're not going to
Mm-hmm.
get this all at once. It's camping out its depth,
Mm-hmm.
so that as you did it, you took what I call 3 steps forward and 2 steps back.
Mm-hmm.
It's, well, you got to go back, revisit this, reprocess
Right.
it. Let's stay here, and it's kind of this forward and back, forward and back. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not let's march forward. And if you don't journal, by the way, you'll never have this happen to you, because you won't even remember anything about what he's trying to
Right.
say to you.
Right.
And even when we're journaling, you got to go back and process. And he says, okay, you got pieces of it. Let's
Mm-hmm.
go back, process some more. I have more to give you, and I'll move you forward and back, forward and
Mm-hmm.
back. And it's kind of a beautiful way of teaching, of how he teaches
Right.
us.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, I love that.
and one thing that I'll just throw up here is, you might have a lot of questions for us on this particular issue, or other things that are on your heart. On the YouTube, you can write it in comments section and we get it,
Mm-hmm.
or you can email it to us at questions@afjministry.com, questions@afjministry.com, and we'll get them, and we'll deal with these questions on air, as well as email you back if we have a chance. So
Mm-hmm.
we'd love for you to do that. Okay, on this next thing, this is tips for journaling. Um, so Kathy, if you would uh, read the first one, and we'll just take them one at a time here.
Okay.
These are just things that are helpful as you consider journaling.
Okay. The first one says, always have your journal ready when you are abiding and spending time with him.
Okay. Um, well, it's kind of obvious that when you find your place of, I go to this place in my house, and
Mm-hmm.
I have my Bible, I have my journal. Um, you got to have it with you,
Mm-hmm.
and you get used to writing it into it, and because God's going to speak things to you, all the time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so you got to have it available to speak. And the other thing I'd like to add to that is, and Kathy, you might be able to speak to this too, is remember you're abiding 24/7,
Right.
and because you're paying attention, what I call camping out in this one area that he said, I want to have you believe it and experience it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, I could be driving, I could be in meetings, I could be watching something, I could see a billboard, somebody could say something to me,
Mm-hmm.
and at the moment, the Holy Spirit said, "This is for you.
Right.
I have something," and you get it. It's I
Mm-hmm.
got it. I got it. Now, here's what I got to do, and I got a really good memory, by the way. But if I don't write it down,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll say, this was so amazing, so profound, I'll never forget it in my life. And a week later, if I haven't written it down,
Yeah.
I will have forgotten it.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it, part of it is because the information that you're receiving is being piled up on top of it.
Right.
And if you don't write it down, see, it's lost in there. Because
Mm-hmm.
why? Well, you're paying attention to the most recent stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do is, and I make a point of this, and Linda does too, is sometime today, waking during my waking hours,
Mm-hmm.
or this might happen when I would get woken up at night, or a dream, as we've talked about, or the first thing in the morning.
Right.
But sometime today, I got to go write this down in my journal,
Mm-hmm.
and record it. And my
Right.
goal, I don't even worry about what does it all mean. I just
Mm-hmm.
got to write it down, because later
Mm-hmm.
God will say, okay, now that you registered it, let me help you understand it. And I know you've experienced that same thing.
Yeah. And in fact, again, you say you have a great memory. I have a mom memory. I remember calendars well, phone numbers well, where I'm getting somebody when at any given time, but I don't remember other
Well,
things.
okay, all right.
So, fortunately, God's given me a good memory for His Word, though, which is helpful. But nonetheless, because of that, I go as far as to strategically place journals. So I do have my primary journal that's, there's a place that I like to go and sit and have my abide time with a cup of tea, and I'll keep my journal and my Bible there. And it's all, so that's always there. I can run and add something to it. But I also keep a journal in my prayer closet.
Mm,
I also keep a journal by my bed. And if I'm in my car or something, I know there's a place on my phone that I go to notes and I can type something out because I know I will be distracted enough that if I can't reach one of those four spots, it will come and go.
yeah, yeah.
So for me, like I said, I go as far as to actually have journals in different places so that I can conveniently get to one if I need to.
That's great. Yep. So have a journal available and be willing to, when you hear something, write it down. Okay,
Mhm.
go to the next one.
It says,
Tips on journaling.
when you journal, write down what you say to God. You need to be able to review both what God said to you as well as what you say to God. This should include your authentic thoughts and feelings, and particularly all the questions that you will have and need answers to. Let it always be a dialogue as you enjoy the relationship of receiving from God, the God of the universe, who deeply cares about and enjoys being with you and wants to provide the covenant life. He will, best and none better.
That's right. Um, and this is where, again, we make a statement. The journal is yours uniquely. You don't
Mm-hmm.
give it to somebody else because you've got to build this place where you're completely authentic at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have what I call some good days, positive thoughts, and other days you're going to be upset, wondering how come, could
Mm-hmm.
even be angry at God.
Right.
I've been working on this now for 4 weeks, and Rich and Kathy said that life is going to come and I'm going to get transformed, and I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not happy about it. And how come and why not? And so
Mm-hmm.
you got to write down. We said record what God says to you. Well, you got to write what you say to God.
Right.
Okay, how do I view this? What's my perspective on this? What's
And
my
really be
thought of?
authentic in that, even.
Yeah,
That's important. Yeah.
yeah, completely authentic. And what it will lead to, a lot of cases, see, is uh, authentic questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, if this is so, then how come? Or how does
Mm-hmm.
this work? Or why aren't I experiencing it? Or could you
Right.
help explain this statement that I just got, and I see it, but I don't understand it,
Mm-hmm.
or I've observed something here and it doesn't make any sense to me. So could you help give me that answer? And
Mm-hmm.
here's something that I'd like to say to everybody is we tend to take the easy way out. So I got a
Mm-hmm.
tough question,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that our Christian community works is, well, I'll just go ask somebody else. And I'll either look it up in a commentary,
Mm-hmm.
the notes at the bottom of a study Bible, or I'll go ask my professional ministers who are paid,
Mm-hmm.
pastors and leaders of ministries, and I expect them to know these answers. So I'll just short circuit everything, and I'll just go them and say, "What's the answer?" Okay, great, I got the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And God says no. He says His joy, and by the way, your joy, and He's speaking that to me, is to discover the truth, which I will reveal to you.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be in such a rush.
Right.
Why don't you enjoy the process and see again the way that my experience with Him is. And again, the way I was wired as a kid, the way I was wired as a business person was, get to the punchline.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me the answer,
Right.
and give me a little bit of information. Give me the answer. Even the people that used to work for me is okay. What's your answer?
Right.
Let's decide it and go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I was built.
Right.
And God says, well, With me, he says, I'm going to take you through a process of
Mm-hmm.
a different way of doing it. I'm not giving you the punchline. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
walk you into the answer. And usually, what happens for me anyway, I have questions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he asks me questions right back.
Right.
Well, what do you say? What do you think? Did you see this? What's your view of this and this? And he leads me through me having to answer questions to him
Mm-hmm.
of, oh, that's what you're saying. Okay, help me understand it more. So my journal, which is completely authentic, uh, is full of lots of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I wait, and I do not, I resist going to a commentary. I resist going to a
Mm-hmm.
professional because I know something and I've experienced it. If you stay with me, and he says, remember we read this verse, John 8:28-32. If you
Mm-hmm.
abide in my word, you will know the
Truth.
truth, and the truth will set you free.
Yeah.
And the discovery of truth is so fun.
Mm-hmm.
It is so wonderful. And I've come to a place where I don't need to have it immediately, but I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
And I've
So
had
it's
situations, by the way, that took me 6, 8, 10 weeks of something that God had to
mm-hmm.
walk me through piece by piece by piece until I realized and like, oh, that's the answer to this question. And he said, didn't we have a good time with that? You know, the answer was
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I've learned to enjoy it. And you have a
Yeah.
comment on that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I heard an illustration. It's probably been a month ago now that was shocking, honestly, when I first heard it. But I think it nails what you're talking about very, very descriptively. And it was this idea, we so often go so, want so quickly the answer that we will go and we want someone else to tell us their opinion. We want the commentary. We want the pastor to tell us what to do. We want the fast food version, just give us the answer. And when you're talking about, our walk with God, you talk so much about being in covenant with
Right,
Him.
right.
And again, our marriages. So this was comparing our marriages are a covenant relationship, and the intimacy that is designed to be there is mirroring the intimacy that God desires with us. Correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, so often the way that we want to interact with other people giving us what God says is not unlike when we invite pornography into our marriage. We are actually settling for somebody else's intimacy in place of the intimacy that was intended for us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good
And I
way
was
of
like,
putting it.
wow, that is a shocking, to me, it was a shocking illustration, but so accurate,
Yes.
because he invites us to a personal intimacy,
Yes.
not to witness somebody else's intimacy,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Wow.
to have it ourselves.
Yeah. That
And I
is
was like,
a
that nails it.
it does nail pretty stark.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little shocking.
Yeah.
I warned you, it was a little shocking, but so truthful,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. And I think it's a really good way of doing it. Is that, see, God doesn't want us to live vicariously
Right.
of or acting out. Will act like a Christian. He
Mm-hmm.
says, no, I want you to experience the life that
Yeah.
is coming from me, and that's an intimacy
Mm-hmm.
that I want with you, which is, by the way, I created you, and you're going to be the
Right.
visible expression of me, the invisible God.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth, the reality, see, of this covenant life, he
Mm-hmm.
says, will demonstrate itself as you do that. And I'll work it
Mm-hmm.
both in you and around you through circumstantial change and through supernatural things and through the life that you get to experience, so that all of this is going to reflect the life that I've chosen to
Mm-hmm.
create, which is why I created man and women in the first place,
Right. Right.
to have this expression of me and my life with them.
Which
And
is incredible, right?
it's really incredible. Okay, well let's do one more. If
Okay.
you go this next tip.
That says, make sure you do not let writing in your journal become more important than hearing from God. It is not a program, but a relationship. Always enjoy the dialogue.
Yeah, yeah. And this is, again, there's a tendency of people who say, well, then I need to do this right. and you start looking at the format, the structure, the mechanics.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, I'll write it all
Yeah.
down, and I'll make sure it's this way and looks this way, and now I'm focused on the writing
Mhm.
as opposed to the receiving
Right.
of and are you enjoying the intimacy with God? Are you enjoying
Mhm.
the process with God? Writing's important.
Mhm.
He wants us to write it down, but never in front of. Are you just enjoying me?
Right.
And
Right.
are we having a fun walk together? And you're receiving. You're taking the what I call your energy to be in that relationship. And
Mhm.
yes, you're going to write stuff down, which is important, but the energy is toward the dynamics of the relationship.
Right.
And that's where the fun of it is. And
Mhm.
I know that, in your life, you've really learned how to enjoy that. Because
Yeah,
when I
and
ask you, you say, yeah, I am enjoying it.
I do. I love that. It's funny though, even what you said, how we can make that this process. I think I shared before that actually paralyzed me for years from taking the step of journaling because I was too concerned that it had to look a certain way or it had to be, grammatically correct and it had to be
Yeah.
exactly as somebody else was teaching it. And my journal and Dan's journal look very, very different.
Yes.
you know, just like when he would sit and have a conversation with a friend, I wouldn't have that exact same conversation. The way we communicate, my, my desire to put out, I'll put all kinds of thoughts and feelings and adjectives in there, and he's going to just write a blunt question and come back with a blunt answer. And that's how, like you say, got such a good sense of humor with you.
Yes.
And I think he's got a great sense of humor with me, but that wouldn't be the primary characteristic I see in my journal. I see this tender father heart of God
Right.
because that's how he communicates with me. So don't, I just would encourage anybody, don't get locked into it has to look a certain way. It is a dialogue,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And therefore the characteristic about it is that if you looked at your journal and you were going, page to page to page to page over a couple of months, 2 or 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
because of its relationship, there should be surprises in there. There should
Yes.
be, well, today it looked this way, and the next day it looked something different. And
Yeah.
if you went into a mechanical system, well, I always do this, and then I do this, and then I do this. Well, you're then caught in the system, and you've lost the
Mm-hmm.
essence of the relationship. And
Right.
and again, it's a simple question: uh, Are you enjoying the
Mm-hmm.
abiding? Uh, be real with that. Like
Right.
no, okay, well then something's not right. And
Mm-hmm.
go to God about that. Okay,
Yeah.
God, what do you need to release from me so that I really want to enjoy it? Because I can tell you one thing,
Right.
with everybody that I've experienced teaching abiding, if they have a heart to go, and they keep that question in front of them,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that will happen for sure within days, weeks, and certainly no longer than a month, God says, I'm going to enjoy it with you,
Mm.
and you will enjoy it with me.
Right.
And when you do, you'll never want to stop that, see?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to, we have a tendency to drift back into system. And
Right.
he keeps breaking through that and saying, nope, it's just a relationship. I'm going to surprise you today.
Mm-hmm.
It would be, similar to, I think I told yesterday about him taking Aiden, my grandson, to the Nuggets game, playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a surprise, so I didn't, give him a long explanation. I just said, hey, a few days ago, I said, hey, Aiden, I got tickets to the Nuggets playoff game. We're going to go together in a couple of days, and it was a
Mm.
surprise to him. Um, and it was exciting to him. Oh, fantastic. Oh, this will be cool. And so our time together at the Nuggets game will be different than it would be if we were sitting at home doing
Right.
something else. So it's going to be fresh. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. That's a good illustration.
Yeah. Well, again, man, we just have fun doing this. We got more to share on the tips of journaling. And again, let me throw up there that if you have questions, you can put it on the YouTube comment section, or you can write us at questions at afjministry.com, questions, plural, at afjministry.com. We'll get them, and we'll keep sharing with them. And we got some coming up here this week that we're going to share. So please send it in. And boy, we had fun today. That was fun.
We did.
Fun day.
I'm going to add one thing, if you don't mind. God
Yep.
just kind of laid on my heart too. Maybe a listener needs to hear this, but it's just a reminder of Jeremiah 31:25 today.
Mm-hmm.
I will refresh the weary and satisfy the faint.
Yes.
And just when we're talking about this abiding, it is at his feet that you find true refreshment. So if you are feeling that, you are feeling weary today, know that just simply stepping in and spending time with him, he is willing and ready and waiting to refresh you.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the invitation is always there.
Yep. And we'll pick this up tomorrow. There's more practical things that are going to be help you with your journaling, but we'll pick it up. And so, Kathy, have a great night and say hi to Dan for me. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.